Hello everybody, look who's back. It's me, Stephen J. Holleran. Do you remember me? Does anyone remember me? Do you remember?
Yes, of course.
Don't shake your head.
Of course.
So I'm back for a very special conversation with someone who's a little bit of a stranger to me. I thought you were... Where did you go? You disappeared, didn't you? Introduce yourself.
I'm Andrew Dyer. I was the one of the three councillors for the ward of Daresbury Moor and Sandy Moor, elected back in 2021. Because it was an all-in election and I finished third, I only had a one-year term, and then I was back up for re-election. But then ahead of that election, my employer put on the table a family relocation to the United States.
New York City.
Yes, New York, yeah. And so we were, so basically in order to not trigger by-elections or anything complicated like that, it just felt like a natural thing to not stand at the last election and to step back and to support Rich in his candidacy. Unfortunately, he wasn't successful in retaining my seat last year.
Through no fault of his own, really,
No.
because it was such a decisive election and people were like,
It was so bizarre.
So much going on, and it came down to one envelope, didn't it?
Yeah, well, the last election, there wasn't many votes between them all in the end, but the Labour and the Conservative candidate were a dead heat, and after multiple recounts, they had to draw names out of the hat in order to decide who got elected. So,
Also, what was the voters' share? Because voter apathy, as we said at the time, played a huge part in everyone's loss, not just Greens.
absolutely. And when I got elected, it was an all-in election, and especially in Daresbury Moor and Sandy Moor, it was a crazy high turnout, especially compared to some of the other wards. Amongst everything, I'm just an advocate of democracy. Basically, I just want everybody to get out and vote, and so regardless of the colour of basically just have an opinion, read some leaflets, engage with the process, and put your vote down. When decisions are made based on only 30% or less of the electorate turning out, it feels fundamentally wrong.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
And so it's kind of just get out and vote, just read the leaflets, engage with the candidates, have an opinion and go out and put an X next to their name. And so above everything, when I was standing in 2021, that was just my big message, just like I just really wanted to motivate people to get out and vote. And so we had a really good turnout, and I was only narrowly beaten into third place. I was only just behind the second candidate. So yeah, it was exciting, and it was a brilliant year being elected. I was sitting on the environment committee, and I was sitting on the health committee, and obviously attending full council meetings, and I was regularly attending
parish council meetings.
all three of the parish council, like the full council meetings for the council, where budgets and things were getting voted through. But then then obviously the regular parish council meetings in Sandy Moor, Moor and Daresbury, and trying to get into as many of those as I could, be as visible and as hands-on and as helpful to those parish councils as I could, as well. So yes, it was disappointing when I decided not to stand, that the Green Party weren't able to retain the seat. But I'm back with a vengeance.
Baby.
I'm back with a vengeance.
Let's talk about the loss that it was, because for me, without your help and support, for not just Green Message, but you personally, do you cast your memory back to Burrell's Bridge?
Yes.
Me and you stood at that bridge, microphone not working.
Yeah.
All these people looking to you and looking to me. Yeah. I don't know nothing. And what was it like to see all these people demanding answers to something, and what was your thought process at the time?
It was just exciting to see residents being engaged, and residents feeling passionate enough about something that they came out in the spare time, precious spare time, to get out and group together and be visible, and basically we took a big photo, and there was no getting away from the fact. People couldn't dismiss it as was just a couple of loonies that are making a bit of a noise. Yeah. Basically, no, there was a group of people there, a group of residents who were passionately against the proposed development. To protect the bridge and against the proposed development.
Up to that point, and correct me if I'm wrong, there were just isolated pockets of people all saying different things at different times. There wasn't a galvanisation of that support into one big thing. And then what you helped us do was clarify that message and say, no, this is what we don't want. And through you and through what you helped with the Green Party, I made so many different contacts. So I'm still one of them is one of my closest friends now. Can't live without him, Rick.
Yeah.
And through him, he's helped list the bridge.
Yeah.
From the big group,
which is amazing.
People. And we couldn't have done that without the Green support.
No, we achieved that, and we achieved over. So I know, in the grand schemes of planning applications, a petition doesn't count for very much. It counts as one comment.
That's what Diane said.
But there was over 1,000 signatures on the anti-development petition as well. And yeah, just being able to have that focus point that basically it just meant that everybody, because obviously it's not just Daresbury Moor and Sandymore that's affected by development, but it's North and South that are affected by it, and people were coming to me and just going, I'm trying to raise this with my Labour councillors and my elected representatives, and they're not listening, or they're listening, but the party isn't allowing them to do anything about it.
Well, I remember I interviewed quite a few different people on the last election, tried to get as many voices to the interview room as possible, give people the choice to say who they believe is going to represent their interests, and they all said the same. They're opposing it, this, that, the other, blah, blah, blah.
The Green Party has no party whip, has no, basically, I, as an elected, if elected, Green Party councillor, I can have whatever opinion I want. I can be as vocal as I want. I can take what position I want, and go as public with my opinion as possible, and be as much of a thorn in people's sides as I am able to be within the remits of my role. There's no party consensus, and so many other people were coming to me, councillors from other parties, and saying to me, I agree with everything you're saying, but I can't go public with it. I can't do this, and I can't do this.
Because the hands are like tied.
And it was just so frustrating. It was just like, no, just have the courage of your convictions. Be free to represent. You are there as an elected representative. And I hate it at both the local government and within the local authority and at national government level. I hate the whole party whip thing. I want my representative, regardless of political party, to be able to represent me.
Exactly. And I wanted to give people the fair chance to voice their opinion in that way. I believe that these people want that, but they're restricted.
It just needs to be
more voices around.
Yes. More voices, bigger conversation, bigger opposition, a more vocal opposition, a more mobilised opposition. And I just think, I know I'm no spring chicken. But,
you're a lot younger than I do, sir.
but some youthful energy, new ideas, fresh approach, not just doing things the way things have always been done with people that have been elected for the last 20, 30, 40 years. And I think that helps.
It does.
And so regardless of political parties, I think just having some new blood coming through with fresh ideas, fresh energy is essential. Yeah. And I think that having a bigger and more mobilised opposition to within, so I think we're a good few years away from any other party having overall control of Halton Council.
Yeah.
But basically, in just talking in the real world, but I think just having a more vocal and visible opposition will massively help. And I saw firsthand, I've been talking to people that have said, when I was in the room, even in the full council meetings or in the committee meetings, the other parties were fighting over each other to raise, what's the carbon footprint of this idea? What's this? Because they didn't want me to be the one that always got to have to verbalise those concerns. So basically, before I even had a chance to come off mic or go on mic and to say these things, other parties, because they knew that I was in the room, and if nobody else raised it, I would, they were all fighting over themselves to raise the green agenda. And so I saw firsthand the benefit of having a green in the room. Even if I was only one vote around the table of 10, I focused people's minds. I was a bit of a lightning rod for that way of thinking. And obviously, sadly, for the last 12 months, that's been lost. And I'm hoping to give Holton Council that back. When I stood last time, it was always about being visible and accessible. And a lot of the older school councillors had their face-to-face surgeries and bits and pieces like this. Whereas being far more visible on social media with Twitter and WhatsApp and people, basically I was accessible to people via a greater level of channels than other people were potentially. And I'm not saying that I was exclusive in that, but I was open and available via more means than a lot of the other councillors. And so no, I think that it comes back to just being, people shouldn't have to. I was always on the Living in Sandymore groups on Facebook. People were saying, oh, the traffic's a nightmare and things like this. And people then, 3 comments down, I was being tagged into comments because I was a resident. I was in the group, I was visible, I was regardless of before being elected, I was verbal and visible in those groups.
Yeah, because they're concerned.
Conversations anyway.
Yeah.
And so, if I can't get out of my road because the traffic's a nightmare, then I'm affected the same as everybody else. I've got skin in the game for, which was a lot of what I was saying previously. But I as a resident, I haven't seen that in the last 12 months. I haven't seen in any of the Facebook groups, any of the Facebook chats, any of the 3 elected Conservative councillors being hands-on, visible, and accessible via those means, which I know isn't the be-all and end-all, but I think that's just one part of how a councillor can be real. And not just this mythical creature in some cave over there, that they're real, they're a real person, and especially if they are resident in the ward, basically the amount of people that stopped me on the walk to the co-op and said, I really appreciate everything you're doing, or what is going on with this path, who's going to do with the weeding of this, and people just being in the ward.
I've seen I have seen Sian share things, post things, and she's been at meetings. That's where I first met her. Yeah. And she has put some effort in, but she's got a full-time job. Actually, what is your full-time job now? If you're allowed to say. My
full-time job, I'm an IT project manager for a consulting firm working for the UK government. So yes, I have a busy job, 9 till 5, Monday to Friday, fully utilised. But again, the job of a councillor is designed around that, and so which is why you don't need to be a retired person. So that basically you can do it alongside a full-time job. It often means that in an evening or weekends you're catching up on some of your emails and things, but I was conscious of trying to get back to anybody that did reach out to me via whatever medium, that I made sure to get back to them within a reasonable time frame, so people felt that I was living up to my electoral promises of being accessible and contactable. But obviously this time, last year, Sean took the seat, but she's now elected for 3 years. Up on the ballot paper in Sandymore, Daresbury and Moore this year is Marjorie, who as husband and wife, who are the other 2 Conservative councillors. So Marjorie finished second in the all-in election in 2022, so she had a 2-year. So it's Marjorie that's up on the ballot.
I hadn't seen her name. The current councillor Sian, I hadn't seen her name on the ballot.
No. So basically, yes. Yeah. So she's got so she's only 1 year into her 3-year, so she won't be back up. For
would you say that the role of a councillor is a long-term thing? Would you prefer it to be something that is more you settle into, you take a deep breath and you continue to commit to it, or is it something you can just dip in and out of?
I think being brand new to it when I came in 2021 and I got elected and went through all of my induction and things like this, there is an element of, especially when you build relationships both with the parish councils and with the operational directors and things within the council. Because you go to a parish council meeting and they say, oh, these street lights are out and they keep ignoring us. And I think they basically say, fine, I'll make a note and basically go away and I send an email to the street scene operational director and say, can you just, because you know who to reach out to, and so you've got some kind of working relationship.
Building a rapport.
So those kind of things. So yes, it helps, I think, just knowing the priorities in the wards and on the parish councils and knowing who the key people are within the local authority to talk to, that helps. So basically, so having every year somebody completely new elected would be challenging. So yes, it's good, I think, to a level, to have some level of continuancy in the role. But obviously, in a normal situation, somebody would get elected for 3 years. I only had a year to get in, get up to speed, get into meetings, feel like I was making some kind of an impact before either I was going to be back up on the ballot paper or somebody in my place because I was standing down. So I didn't feel as if I feel very much that I had unfinished business for my 1 year. I don't feel as if I had enough opportunity.
But you got a taste for it.
Got a taste for it, and it feels, and both I saw the good sides and I saw the downsides. That I saw that there wasn't always, in my opinion, enough scrutiny of local authority officers at committee meetings when proposals were getting brought forward with a recommendation. I didn't always feel as if there was enough scrutiny of it, and there wasn't enough appetite for doing things differently, with new ideas, fresh energy. But obviously there was only so much that I could achieve and push within a 1 year time frame.
Yeah, I didn't know it was that short a time basically.
So hopefully, if elected this year, I'll have 3 years to make a difference, and next year, when Marjorie's husband, John, is on the ballot paper next year, we might be able to get a second Green Party candidate to stand against him next year, and basically, so it all comes down to, especially in the Northwest, there is a track record of being able to get one Green councillor in and proving to the masses that a vote next to the Green candidate isn't necessarily a wasted vote, and if sufficient people feel the same way and vote the same way, then next year it could be 2. Next year after that it could be 3.
Absolutely.
And then suddenly the Green Party is the largest party in opposition. Because at the moment there's 3 Lib Dems and 3 Conservative councillors. And so it doesn't take very much for the Green Party. If we were able to get another, say, 3 or 4 people elected, we could be the largest opposition party against which would be massive. And then suddenly that momentum builds, and you can get more and more. So down south, I think in West Suffolk or something, the Green Party is hoping this year for overall control of their first whole council, which would be a massive breakthrough. Yeah. But back in 2021, I was historic, being the first Green Party councillor ever to be elected in Holton.
It's hard to believe that. It's just, I mean, not because of you, because you think of the Green Party being going for so long, and the Green message and stuff like that, but why did it take so long?
And everyone that you bump into on the street, you say, "Are you concerned about climate change?" Most people will say yes. Are you wanting things to be? Are you wanting less packaging? Are you wanting this? Are you wanting that? It was like yes. It was like, but yet at the ballot box, that doesn't always translate through. So
it's just the thing. People say different things to people's faces, don't they? Ballot box.
But yeah, at local authority level, and again, it's trying to divorce the two from somebody can vote one way in a general election, and at a local election they can vote differently. They can vote for the right candidate with the right priorities for their area,
for their ward or their borough.
Yeah, and it doesn't need to be somebody on some comment that I commented on Facebook just yesterday, said, this isn't a football team. You don't just sign up to be a supporter of a football team and then support them through good or bad. Basically, these are elected representatives, and if they're not doing a good enough job, you vote them out and you vote somebody else in. And you don't pledge at the age of 18 undying loyalty to one political party for your entire life. It's a good
analogy, that, because I've always been a floating voter. And I've always listened to what the local concerns were first, because I like my heritage. I like Runcorn. A lot of people don't for some reason. They always slag it off. But when it comes to national, it sort of sullies the message, isn't it? You know, you see what the Tories are doing, what the Labour are doing, and it comes down to keep the Tories out or vote Labour. We can't vote for no one else because that'll let the Tory scum in. Yeah. But you've got to get out that tribalism, haven't you?
Yeah. And I think that's toxic, and I don't believe in negative politics. I want to stand for what I stand for and what I believe in. I don't need to pick holes in what other parties are and aren't doing. I don't want to get into that. I want to be elected on the positives that I bring, not the negatives that I highlight in other people. So yeah, people saying, oh yes, the Labour majority is old and tired and we need to do something about it. It was just like, well yes, some people hold that view. Having 3 Conservative candidates in Daresbury Moor and Sandymore, people are surprised by that and just like, but again, they have, well, when we had a 2 councillor before the all-in election, those same 2 councillors, Marjorie and John, were elected year after year after year. So they can't have been doing a bad job.
True.
And despite not living in the ward, they were adequately representing the people of the ward. So basically, I don't want to speak ill of anybody.
Absolutely. And that's my issue last year, was every time I was interviewing people from different parties, I kept getting the comments of, why are you giving them a platform? Why are you talking to them? You should pick a side.
Yeah.
And I was like, why should I pick a side?
No.
You know, I'm trying to give them their voice. Because I want a mixture of different people in that room.
Yeah.
Saying different things, because there's a mixture of different people everywhere.
Yeah. Before I'd agreed to stand this year, some leaflets were already coming through the door, and my daughter has just turned 18 in March, and so this is her first election that she'll ever vote for, and obviously my wife and I are into our politics and stuff like this, so she's aware of things, and she was like, I don't know who to vote for. And she's like, well, we're not going to tell you who to vote for. I said, when the leaflets come through the door, you need to read them and decide, based on the information that they've got there, which one speaks to you as to which one you think would be best to represent you for the next 3 years.
It's a hard thing to do, because when my kids grow up, I want them to have their own opinion too. Yeah. And it's hard because they get so much, shouting in their face.
Yeah.
You must, you bigot, if you don't. It's hard at the moment, isn't it?
It is, and so obviously now that I've agreed to stand, I'm hoping that she puts a cross next to her dad's name.
Yes.
But before that, but yeah. So, but you just, I would never presume to tell my kids what football team to support or what political party to vote for. But we've stressed to all of our kids how important democracy is and how important it is to. Especially for daughters, when women for years didn't have the right to vote, and it's just like, well, use it. And so regardless of where you put a cross, please make the effort to get down to your polling station and put a cross next to a name. And so above everything else, that's a message that we've got through with our kids, and that's what I'm just trying to get out to other people.
One of the questions I wrote down here, and it's more about, I say it's a borough problem, but also Sandymore issue, Daresbury issue. What is the biggest issue facing the borough at the moment? What do you think it is? What concerns you the most, I reckon? I know it's probably multiple things, but...
The highest profile thing, certainly within the ward, is the overdevelopment and the loss of green space, that basically Sandymore and Daresbury have probably got the last corners of greenfield space left in the borough. And so, and we were making the point loud and clear previously that you don't have to be anti-development. There is more than enough opportunities for derelict retail parks, derelict industrial areas that could get torn down and with residential areas built on them instead. But that's a little bit hard, that's a little bit messy. Going to dig up a virgin green field over there is far simpler. And we're just like, no. So basically, again, we were trying to get the message across that basically this isn't yes, we do appreciate that as a country, we need more houses and things, but it comes back to there has to be a smarter way of achieving the ultimate goal, and just taking the easy option of giving developers incentives to dig up green fields doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not in the area anymore. I got sort of moved out of the area through higher rents and sales and stuff. But for your perspective, it must be terrible looking over what's going on Daresbury Hill, and it's sort of creeping over like a Martian invasion.
Yes, and both the loss of green fields and the increased traffic on the roads. I'm on the Morris Homes estate, and yes, and so if you time your school run journey in the morning 5 minutes the wrong way, you can get stuck in absolute gridlock. And I remembered, before the Blore Homes Phase 2 was going for planning permission to extend behind the school, of which the only way for those additional cars to exit was through the Phase 1, out across the bridge in front of the school. Yeah. And basically we were going to funnel an additional 200-300 houses worth of cars onto the existing road network that was already struggling. And seeing people say, oh no, we've done a road survey and it's fine. And it's just like, well, as a resident who's struggling to get out of their road, I can tell you it's not. Already, before you build another 300 houses. And so, yes, it's the development in the wrong places, it's the insufficient appreciation of the impact on the road networks, the schools, the amenities, doctors, dentists, all those kind of things. Do we have enough of all of those things to support those additional houses? Or are we just chasing the higher rate council tax?
Well, it feels like they're pushing to see what they'll get away with.
Yeah.
In terms of development.
And yeah, so it's just about being in the room, asking the awkward questions, being a thorn in people's side, and just ensuring that any and all development that is needed and that is approved is done in the best places, with the least environmental impact, and the properties that are built are the most energy efficient that can be made. So it's about having that agenda and not just. Because I've had levied at me. It's just like, well, how can you be campaigning against all these others when you're living in a house that 7 years ago was a green field? As is and was your message back in 2021 around the opposition, everything, enough is enough. Basically, just because they built 1,000 houses doesn't mean that they should be building another 1,000 houses. And basically, you've got to think that you need to be able to draw a line somewhere,
and we draw the line here.
And that was our message back then, and that's the message that I still hold now. And so, I'm quite comfortable with my position that I can be anti more green fields being dug up whilst still living in a new build property.
But the thing is, it wasn't just that; it's what type of homes they are. Yeah. For me, Holton is more or less a social housing area. We need more social housing. We need more practical housing for people on the lower scale. But we're not building.
No.
We're building more for more people to come in, but not for people who are constantly here worried about Holton property pool, trying to get on the property pool for bidding and stuff. I'm there right now. I've got no home at the moment. I'm living with you, aren't I? Because I was priced out of where I was. Yeah. But also there's no property pool houses available to me. So I have to buy. Yeah. Which seems weird. It should be affordable rents. There should be affordable everything. So,
And the definition of, because I know that when I was talking previously to Mike Amesbury as the MP for our area and our ward, the definition of affordable housing is broken.
Yeah, it's laughable.
It is laughable. It's just like, but obviously that comes from national government, that kind of policy as to what that definition is, but it's down to the local authority as to how they implement that policy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
so have they got the ability to change and bend what they want to do in the borough, depending on what... Because the national government says you must build 1,000 homes. Can they say, can we just build 500? What's the...
That is always the million-dollar question. So there's always... Different politicians go on the Sunday morning TV shows and some say, oh no, there are such things as housing targets. Others go on and say there's no such thing as housing targets. And no, we're not giving local authorities targets to build houses. That's ridiculous. But then, so I don't know whether or not it's a bit of an urban myth or not. But it does seem to perpetuate. But obviously my challenge was a lot of the area around Sandymore, Moor and Daresbury was earmarked for development in local plans 20, 30 years ago.
Sandymore certainly, but not the hills of Daresbury.
No, but those were privately owned and privately sold and the like. But I just kept coming back to those parish council meetings and saying, but that was 20, 30 years ago. The world's changed since then.
Yeah.
We've had climate crises announced all over the place since then, and so at what point do we press the pause button and review and go, does this still make sense? Let's have a new conversation about some of this stuff.
Well, that was one of my questions, wasn't it? I think you were there with COP26 at the time, and they were constantly talking about what we've had planned in the past, neglecting the future, which is we're building on this land which is basically a floodplain basin where things wash into naturally, and they're going to build on it, and that's before the climate crisis is taken into account. So, I mean, where are we now? Because I'm not on Facebook at the moment, but I'm so not up to date. Where are we with the development side of things? Have they got approval for Sandymore South? What's going on?
To be honest, because I was emigrating, I took my eye off a lot of the developments and stuff myself. As far as I understand, the outline planning permission has gone in, and obviously there was numerous objections and things to it.
Yeah, right.
I don't believe there has been that outline permission's yet been granted. So
I know it's more than likely that will go ahead on the edge of the canal, or to the edge of the canal, which is again a shame. But apparently that was part of the historic plan, the vision.
Yeah, and again, it was, and going back to when I was looking at this previously, it was like, it may be feasible, it might not be feasible to stop stuff from happening, but certainly it's within scope to shape and change what's happening, and to reduce the number of houses instead of increase the number of houses, increasing the size of the of green space that is put to one side afterwards, to ensure that all of the houses that are built are well above average energy efficiency levels, all of which applies additional burdens onto the developers, and makes the opportunity less financially attractive for them, and things. So there's definitely ways of shaping this, and so even if things can't be blocked and stopped, there I'm hoping ways to ensure that any planning permission, as it progresses through its various phases, we can still have a very loud voice, and ensuring that the right road access, the right everything is considered, and not the cheapest possible everything to get it through, and to hold people accountable for the decisions that are being made. So, and that's what I wanted. That's what I'll do as a resident, regardless. But I'd like to be able to do that from within the chambers.
What about, because local heritage is very important, and we're in this historic pub at this moment in time holding it. I mean, hello, this is not an arms. I meant to say that at the beginning. But we've got to protect this local heritage. But the problem is we've got the level crossing cottage is now gone.
Yeah.
I think they're planning on looking into feasibility and closing the crossing altogether.
Yeah.
All this stuff that sort of gets chipped away at Halton over the years. What's your priorities with preserving stuff like that? Because I don't think they're listening to that, are they really?
No. But again, we've proven though with Boroughs Bridge that stuff that isn't listed and protected today can be listed and protected tomorrow. So yes, I have personal opinions that basically we should be identifying and protecting our heritage. We should be ensuring that any nature surveys are done above reproach and challenge, and not picked and chose when seasons are done to minimise the findings. But basically I want to make sure that those things are done, and if species are found, then basically plans are altered, plans are changed, plans are moved on, and I want to ensure that the people's concerns that those things aren't happening are resolved.
So, and transparency as well. I think the thing with the issue with that is we always feel that the council either leave things to rot, or they don't protect things until it's too late. And it takes someone like Rick, who is just a normal guy, to list it.
Yeah.
Why wasn't the council doing this? Why wasn't there any big, official body doing this? It feels insane that this won't do it.
It does, and I don't think there's a big enough appreciation in Halton of its heritage.
No, I agree.
And I think there's just an apathy across the board, not just within the council itself, but within residents and things, that there isn't enough value placed on history and heritage, and it feels as though Runcorn was a new town.
Once it got the new town status, that was it, wasn't it?
And basically, let's just rip everything up and build. So. No, I think that, as you say, there comes a point where we need to stop, we need to press the pause button, we need to look around, we need to look at our green space, we need to look at our heritage, we need to look at all of these things and say, what do we need to actually protect? What do we know? What do our kids and our kids' and our kids' want to still have here when their time is here?
The amount of change that's happened just in those few short years, in the last 10 years, 15 years, since my own daughter's been born, it's not scary, but it's I want the same for her.
Yeah.
I want her to walk around the Daresbury fields, and where Sandymore you had that big forest with lovely water, and it feels like it's being ebbed away.
Yes.
And you can't help but feel really angry and apathetic towards voting because of that.
No, we saw firsthand with some recent houses that went up, and the developers went slightly beyond their permitted boundaries and took down some additional trees and woodland which they shouldn't have done, and when challenged they went, oops, sorry,
whoopsies,
our bad, basically I can't put back that 100-year-old tree now, sorry about that. And I don't think there's enough accountability for up front to have somebody there witnessing and ensuring that the developers stick to the exact spray painted line on the floor and don't put a boot over it.
And the filling in of inner waterways as well, I've seen as a problem.
Yes, and which all comes back to when you're building on a rain drainage area and things. So you do. You need all of those protections in place, and you need the Environment Agency, and you need those other things all around this to ensure that what development is permitted is handled the most sensitive way with the least environmental impact that is physically possible.
Exactly. So let's talk about you for a second.
Okay.
Personally, I'm going to deep dive in that. What's your hobby? What do you do when you're not thinking of counselling and work and flying off to New York and abandoning people? I've got a family. I've got 3 dogs. 3 dogs, so you do a lot of walking then.
So yes. So in the woodland and green spaces of Sandymore. So any spare time that I have is spent with the kids and with the dogs and with the kids and the dogs. So.
And how many kids have you got? Sorry, remind me.
Well, 4 altogether.
4?
But one is grown up, married and living in America. One is grown up and moved out and is in Manchester, and the other 2 are still living at home. So
it's amazing, isn't it? It doesn't look old enough to have people moving abroad. It's amazing, that, isn't it? I was just going to ask, because you've got a good varied age group there, where you can say, right, you're raising your kids in different environments, different places. And so your opinion on these things really does shape how you lead and how you express your opinion. So you said your daughter's just turned 18 now.
Yes.
So she'll be voting, and you said you don't want to colour her voting intention. You didn't either, did you? You didn't say vote a certain way. But how has your voting changed it over your lifetime? Has it been something that's always been green?
Definitely not. I was born in Essex, in the Conservative heartland, and my parents were lifelong Conservative voters, and I was brought up, and my first votes at both local and national level were all for the Conservative Party. Mainly because, well, especially because the local MP, he was doing a good job. So regardless of whether or not we agreed at the national level with everything that was going on there, but certainly as a kid or as a 18-year-old, early 20s, the local MP was doing a good job in representing their residents, and basically, regardless of party, you can't ask for much more from your elected representative than that. But then, I've moved around the country with work, and I've lived in Yorkshire. I've lived down on the Isle of Wight, and before moving to Runcorn. I've seen from local authorities and for local members of parliament and stuff like this, I've seen good, bad, and indifference. I've seen what I would expect from my representatives, and that's why I want to be that. So no, but probably over my lifetime, I've voted red, blue, yellow, and green.
So you were a floater as well, then, weren't you?
Yeah, it all came back down to the politics of the time. Some tactical voting to achieve what I wanted to happen both locally and nationally, and lending people my votes at certain times to enable things to happen or things not to happen. But it was only when I was working on the Isle of Wight, I worked for a wind turbine manufacturer, and that was when I was, on an island where 90% of the island is an area of outstanding natural beauty. And it was suddenly at that point did my green credentials really come through, and it's like, no, this is something that's actually important to me. So above, regardless of party, my local representative doing right by the residents, suddenly I had some core values that I didn't feel were being adequately addressed by any of the big parties. At the time they all felt as if they were paying lip service to it.
Yeah, it's all
and it's kind of a no. I want to put my money where my mouth is, and so it was at that point that I thought, well, Green Party doesn't get the millions of donations from other things, so basically I joined up to be a member and started my small monthly direct debit going into their coffers to help fund their general election campaigns and things like this. And then as a result of joining the National Party, I was then introduced to my local Green Party. And from being introduced to my local Green Party, I was asked to stand way back in 2019, was it? Yeah, 2019, as a paper candidate for the Green Party. So that's when I stood for the first time. But just with generic Green Party leaflets. But I achieved 20% of the vote back in 2019, which was why then in 2021 I was asked to stand as a target to win and be given my own leaflets and a bit more apparatus behind me to help.
It takes a lot of guts to stand by your principles, but also stand by a party, because I've found that people attack you no matter what you do.
Especially now, because especially in the national news, there's lots of extreme protests between Extinction Rebellion and Stop Oil, and it's easy just to band all of these green loonies together and stick them in a corner and ignore them because of the extreme nature of what they're doing. But the Green Party isn't Extinction Rebellion and isn't Stop Oil, but also the Green Party in Warrington and Holton is a different animal again to the Green Party nationally. So it's, and as I said, it goes back to, I have the ability to set my own agenda, my own priorities, my own what I want to achieve on my election thing. No one's telling me what I can and can't
Which is
put
what I
on
always
there.
admire about the Green Party.
So a vote for me is just a vote for, hopefully people agree, a good guy who lives in the area, who cares and wants to do right by the local residents. And also, by the way, he happens to be Green Party and is passionate about protecting the green space in which we live as well. So I'm hoping that that's kind of the overall message I'm trying to get through on my leaflet and in my messaging to the voters, whilst encouraging them to get out to vote for somebody. Also say, I'd be a good person.
Absolutely, and I do think people are going to remember everything you did the previous time, and it's going to filter through. And it's like when you first told me, I was excited. I felt excited to see your face again because it was something. It was optimism. You felt like optimism. I don't know if that's not brown nose. It was just an optimistic tone that you set. That whenever I feel comfortable sat in the same room as you. I don't feel that you're putting on this act. You are who you are.
Yeah, and I care and I want to make a difference. Just I've got sadly I'd lost my previous Facebook candidate page, which had 400 or 500 followers and things on it, so I've had to start a new one of those. So basically I'm just trying to get the word out, so basically people liking and sharing that page.
Well, let me know what the links are to all your stuff because I'll put it in this video.
Brilliant. And then just try to get that out there. So I'm trying to get as much out and post on the various Facebook groups and things as I can, but whatever mediums are available to me, just trying to get the word out there so that people, that I'm able to be a bit of a lightning rod for other things that are going on, and to share the local litter pick that's happening and this and just try to expand the array of other things that are going on in the area that I want to support.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming out.
No,
I know you've been busy,
time.
and I owed you one for what you did for me.
I really appreciate it.
And
really appreciate it.
I wish you all the success. I hope, I do, I don't think I need to hope that you're going to get the votes. I think people are going to turn out to vote for you. I think you're such a lovely guy, and I hope you do well.
So, thanks ever so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
See you later.